Nephi didn't fail twice before succeeding. I sometimes hear members talk about the story of Nephi and his brothers returning to Jerusalem for the brass plates as an example of failure, an example of trying to do things your own way without seeking God's help, failing, and then finally figuring out how to listen to the Spirit to be successful. This is an incorrect understanding of the story. This story is actually a great example of obedience and the different ways people get direction from the Lord, line upon line and precept upon precept. It also illustrates how God uses our efforts to accomplish His purposes and increase faith. I'm also going to tell you about what I believe is a hidden miracle in the story. So let's review what they were told to do and the methods they used to seek and receive divine guidance from the Lord. When Lehi has his dream from the Lord, the only instructions he gets is that all his sons are to 1. Return to Jerusalem, 2. Go to the house of Laban, 3. Seek the records, and 4. Bring them back. That's it. Lehi's family knew Laban and how dangerous he was. They knew he was a military commander with 50 guards who likely had command over 10,000 men. They had no idea what they would do to get him to cooperate, but they were obedient. And the brothers took the long, all uphill journey back to Jerusalem, following the first method of divine guidance, to follow revelation given through the prophet. When they arrive and go to the large house complex of Laban, they don't know how to ask for or seek the records. So they use the second method of divine guidance. They turn to their knowledge of the scriptures. They were familiar with the scriptures in Joshua chapter 18 and Chronicles chapter 24 that explain how God told the people to cast lots to determine His will. Lots are like dice or stones with marks on them. This practice was used by the priests in the temple at the time of Nephi and was still being used 600 years later by the apostles in the New Testament. This ancient method required the brothers to exercise faith that God could cause the lots to fall in the way that would reveal His will. The lots indicated that Laman should be the one to speak to Laban. This also makes sense culturally, since he is the eldest and would be considered in charge of the family in the absence of Lehi. Laman takes his step in faith and requests the records from Laban, likely telling Laban about the Lord's commandment to his father. This exchange allows Laban to reject the commandment of the Lord and also falsely accuse Laman of being a robber, which, as I indicated in my other video, makes him guilty of capital offenses. God needed Laban's wicked intentions to manifest as wicked actions in order for His judgment upon him to be just, and this step accomplished that. After this rejection, and in spite of the discouragement they felt, Nephi expresses his faith and uses divine method 3 to study it out in your mind and move forward in faith with your best plan. Nephi suggests that they use their great family wealth to purchase the plates from Laban. This process gives all of them the chance to show their obedience and willingness to sacrifice their wealth to accomplish the commandment of God. Surprisingly, none of Nephi's brothers object, even though Laman and Lemuel had specifically complained about leaving their wealth behind previous to their returning to Jerusalem. When Laban refuses to exchange and then commits robbery and attempts to have them killed, he is again guilty of another capital offense, if not 2. But the theft of all these riches did more than just convict Laban of additional crimes. I believe the Lord used this series of events to get Laban out of his house, alone, and away from his soldiers so Nephi could obtain the plates. Here's how. The text tells us that Laban went out among the elders of the Jews that night. This would have been the same wicked leaders who had rejected Lehi's message and been a part of the group who wanted to kill him. Laban was likely celebrating and bragging to these men that he had now stolen Lehi's wealth. I believe this directly explains Laban's drunken condition. Additionally, Laban's own arrogant pride caused him to don his armor and sword and tell his guards to stay behind while he went out alone to celebrate and brag to his allies. That same night, after using all the other methods and being told specifically by the angel to return, Nephi is left with the only remaining source of divine guidance, being led directly by the Spirit without knowing exactly what to do. Laban is delivered into Nephi's hands because God has led them line upon line and used their efforts and faith to set up a scenario for Nephi to execute Laban without a fight or witnesses. God further supports Nephi by performing what I believe is an overlooked hidden miracle in the story. He makes Nephi miraculously appear and sound exactly like Laban. Even though it is at night, the close quarters interaction with Zoram, Laban's most trusted servant, can't be explained by mere disguise and Nephi's natural voice imitation skills. Only by appearing as Laban was Nephi able to command Zoram, who had the keys to the treasury, to get him the plates, but also make it past Laban's personal guard at the treasury without being recognized and without the need for any further bloodshed. Nephi and his brothers didn't fail twice before succeeding. They showed obedience, faith, and a willingness to sacrifice. Even though Laman and Lemuel wavered in their faith and had to be corrected by an angel, in the end, the 4 brothers were collectively blessed with divine guidance and miracles that allowed them to accomplish what seemed like an impossible task. And now you know.